Howdy funky people, I'm Carby and welcome to Carfunkle. I'm a funky little carbuncle and I make videos about mythology. This one is part of my series about mythology in Hades 2. These videos can be watched out of order, just pick the one for a character you want to know more about and watch it. Big reason why I don't number it. So just sit back and watch the ones that interest you. So let's start with... Who is Hecate? In Hades 2, we play the princess of the underworld on her quest to slay the Titan of Time, Kronos. Aiding us in our quest is our teacher Hecate, the goddess of magic, but this god isn't just from Hades 2. Hecate has a long-standing history of worship by not just ancient Greeks, but by modern pagans as the goddess of witchcraft, spells, and rituals. This long history of worship has led us to having a plethora of information about her despite not having many myths for her to call her own. Instead, she tends to have a supporting role in many myths as her spells, potions, and herbs help many a god and mortal. If you watch my iceberg video about Greek gods, prepare for a lot more info than before. A series with 300 gods has to run a little shorter, but this video is just for Hecate. So let's start with the appearance of Hecate in mythology. Hecate originally appeared in the form of a woman holding two torches, a key, or snakes, and was accompanied by a dog and a polecat. The torches as well as the dog and polecat we continue to see in the crossroads in Hades 2. She uses torches to fight us, and Melinoe herself even unlocks double torches to fight with. Later on in mythology, Hecate was depicted as having three forms as three bodies depicted simultaneously. One form being a young woman, another being an adult woman or mother, and the final being an old woman or a crone. This trio becomes very important to witchcraft as it represents the stages of life that a woman must go through. So witches take a great deal of pride in this depiction as it represents them. This triformed goddess Stele is in Hades 2 as well. She'll split into three forms as she fights. This is also a pretty distinct form for a god to take, as most stick to one form, or being a god of duality. Good, evil, black, white, but Hecate represents more. The transitioning period between all of her forms and this representation is also valued by LGBT worshippers, as her triad can represent something beyond the binary, or beyond the black and white of society and its rules. Hecate is also a god of crossroads, night, light, graves, ghosts, and the moon. Some gods overlap in this domain, so we have multiple night and multiple moon gods, such as Selena. But Hecate's domain, Crossroads, is unique to her and important in Hades 2, as it's a location that we return to after each run called the Crossroads. The Crossroads in mythology isn't always a physical place, but instead represents the liminality of being between worlds, being in transitory spaces. For example, if you stand in a doorway, you're currently in a crossroads. You're at the threshold that leads into your home, one place, and the outside, another place. So Hecate is the god of doors, gateways, worlds between, transitions, and boundaries. As you can guess from that, you might be seeing why even more queer people choose to be pagans or practice witchcraft or worship of Hecate. She's not just the goddess of magic, but life's many doors, Ed boy. This transition she represents is many transitions, including life and death. That's what the Crossroads is in Hades 2, the world between the mortal realm and Hades, which is why we see shades in the Crossroads so often, which also connects to how she's the goddess of graves and ghosts. Her job was more than just being the god of Crossroads, as people believed these liminal spaces between one place and another were dangerous. It was up to Hecate as to whether or not a demon was allowed through. If there is a transitory space out there, she's in charge of it, and even in terms of thought. The world between a peasant and a king, that's Hecate. Between Olympians and Titans, Hecate again. The fridge door also belongs to her. The key that she was depicted with is also a key to these spaces, and this key is also the key to opening the underworld, making her a mediary between the shades and the rest of the underworld. For her last domains, night and moon, this is because magic is performed at night by the moonlight. The moon is a source of energy for spells and witches, and so they invoke it in all the spells that they perform, which is likely a big reason why Melinoe and Hecate are covered head to toe in moons. Calling back to the dogs and polecats from the beginning, Hecate is greatly associated with these animals, calling them her familiars. She wasn't just shown with them, but even her arrival was met with dog howls. And if she were to have an animal sacrificed to her, it had to be a dog. Of course, animal sacrifice isn't a thing we do anymore. There isn't much of a reason as to why she's associated with them, but it's just something that got stronger with time. Eventually, Hecate's dog adopted traits of herself, being thought of as a representation of lost souls and demons who followed Hecate. But originally, the depictions of the dog was always seen as docile, so this was just a recent association. It's much more likely that the dog represent Hecate's connection with birth because other goddesses associated with birth also had dogs. Considering we know that Hecate is a representation of womanhood, I think this is a pretty reasonable conclusion to come to. Polecats is where things get interesting. Polecats are a kind of weasel that looks like a ferret, and this animal has had a long time misunderstood birth method. By misunderstood, I mean completely incorrect. You all know who Heracles is. He's Hercules. But before that, he was a fetus chilling in his mother Alcmene's womb. Alcmene is one of the many women impregnated by Zeus, and as usual, Hera was jealous. She punished Alcmene when it came time to give birth to baby Herc. Hera told the Fates and the goddess of birth, Eileithyia, to make her pains as unbearable and unending as possible. They obeyed and sat arms crossed waiting for their task to be done. Galantias, who knew Alcmene, was worried that being trapped permanently in mid-birth would drive her crazy, so she went to the Fates and Eileithyia and said, "It is by desire of Zeus that I come. He demands there be a boy born to him by Alcmene. Your work is done. Release her." They all obeyed, and Alcmene was allowed to give birth to Heracles. But what Galantias did was wrong. She tricked the gods, and for that her punishment was to have her female organs removed and her turned into a polecat, a disgusting creature that was impregnated through the ear and gave birth to her young by mouth. Pitying Galantias' condition, Hecate brought her on as her second sacred animal. And for a good reason. All she wanted to do was protect a mother in birth, which was supposedly Hera's domain. Hera is supposedly the protector of women giving birth, of mothers and young children, but then punished Galantias for doing the right thing. Anyway, now you know what I mean by misunderstanding. It's pretty obvious that polecats don't actually give birth by their mouth. The weirdest thing about this is that they were common house pets at the time, so how could they not know how they bred? The best explanation we have for this is that polecats, like many weasels, and like many other animals in general, move their young by mouth. If you thought we were done with sacred animals, I have bad news. It's also said that the red mullet is sacred to her. Not the Billy Ray Cyrus kind of mullet, but the fish. The reason being a resemblance of nomenclature. The word mullet in Greek was trigal. In a verse to Hecate it says, "O Mistress Hecate, Triodotus, with 3 forms and 3 faces, propitiated with mullets." This connection is further supported by the mullet's love of consuming corpses and being blood red, so it was a natural fit for the supposed blood-drinking goddess Hecate. Her list of sacred animals continues, but here's the bullet points. Hecate was often depicted with the head of other animals. These included cows, dogs, boars, snakes, and horses, but she was also worshipped in the other pantheons as different gods. In the Egyptian mythology, she is the frog-headed goddess Hecate. You can tell by pronunciation how they were connected. She was a goddess of fertility and childbirth, so she was associated with frogs too, and likely where stories of witches turning people into frogs came from. Lastly, she was depicted with lions in artwork, coins, and literature. But enough about dogs and cats and frogs and lions and boars and cows. Hecate had a lot of domains and was largely recognized and archived by the world all over, which is why this has been so long. We barely talked about Hades, but at the same time, this is telling you everything you need to know about her. For example, the large pot in front of her is because she's the goddess of plants and herbs. In Arachne's myth, the herb used to turn her into a spider comes from Hecate. In a myth with Hera, where she tries to seduce and overthrow Zeus, Hera comes to Hecate looking for a potion to make her irresistible. Hecate consoles Demeter during the seasons where she doesn't have Persephone. She even used her 2 torches to help Demeter search for Persephone when she lost her. In Jason and the Argonauts, she aids the sorceress Medea. Multiple times, she is asked to help Jason look for the Golden Fleece. Hecate has everything to do with Hades too, in the Crossroads. Everyone here is here because of Hecate. She is what is bringing everyone together, and she is at the very center of every crossroad. There's a lot more that we could go over, but I think the majority would bore people as it's just a bunch of references to the many times she's helped people. Genealogy, cult worship. Yeah, it wouldn't make for a good video. Hecate might be intimidating or even scary for some in Hades, but she's someone we can rely on, and is also very kind. Also, she's jacked as hell. But if you want to learn more about Hecate, you have to learn it in-game. Thanks for watching, and don't worry, you'll see me again soon. There are a lot of gods, and we have a lot of time left, so that's when I'll see you.